I ended up at the end of 1999 being admitted and sectioned in hospital with stress and depression. But it really was because of that stigma that made me not want to share that story of how mental illness had impacted me.
Orbiting 250 miles above, the space station provides us with the ultimate view of planet Earth. From this perspective, we ask our guests to engage with 6 questions that orbit around wonder and stories of hopefulness. For the next few minutes, this is our Wonderspace.
Welcome to the 142nd episode of the Wonderspace podcast. My name is Steve Cole, and over the past 4 years, I have had the privilege of asking the same 6 questions to amazing people from around the world. Questions that orbit around wonder and stories of hopefulness. We started during the COVID lockdown to enlarge people's vision and perspective and remind us that alongside crisis and emergency are always mind-blowing wonders in the natural world and hopeful stories that have the potential to fuel us and energize us, even in the most challenging of times. For this Wonderspace episode, we orbit around East London, which is home to our guest Jon Salmon. Amongst many things, Jon is a mental health campaigner, award-winning video producer. He's the co-CEO of the Speakers Collective and producer of What's Going On in Your Head. As you'll hear, Jon lost his father to suicide when he was a teenager, and it was 20 years before he shared his story at the launch of the Heads Up campaign alongside the Prince and Princess of Wales and Prince Harry. Jon shares his story and signposts to many people and projects who are doing amazing things in the world. I hope you enjoy the orbit with myself and Jon. Jon, it's great to have you on board a Wonderspace orbit today. The spectrum of life experiences with you is quite amazing. So I'm looking forward to hearing how you engage with our 6 questions. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Steve. Kind of acclimatising myself in this new orbit I find myself in.
Here we go. So, Jon, from this imaginary window seat on the space station with this panoramic overview of Earth, our first Wonderspace question is, if we could do a fly past over any part of the world that is significant to you, which place, city or country would it be and why?
My brother lives in South Africa, and a number of years ago when, having a bit of a tough time, and when I'm not in space, I live in London, and January's pretty grey and miserable here, and I've had some lovely times going to South Africa in January where it's nice and warm and seeing the penguins and going for really nice walks and catching up with my brother. So I think I'd have to settle on Cape Town.
Beautiful. Great start. So diving into your story, our second question focuses in on you and your story. So Jon, give us a glimpse into your life story so far with an emphasis on what you're doing currently.
I guess I've had a pretty varied career so far. Today my work is very much centred around creating social impact. I think, like some of your guests, I wear a few hats. I'm a social impact consultant. I'm co-CEO of Speakers Collective, which I was one of the founding members too. And the collective supports over 160 lived experience speakers that provide a platform to share stories and really make a difference. I run an agency called Byte Entertainment, working with brands and charities to create really innovative content and campaigns. And mental health campaigning has become, I guess, a core part of what I do. It was back in 2017 when I was involved with the Royal Foundation's Heads Together campaign. And the Royals did a brilliant job bringing together 8 major mental health charities in the UK with the shared goal of tackling the stigma around mental health. that experience was transformative for me. I've shared my story very publicly alongside the Royals, William, Harry and Kate. I spoke about the mental health challenges I'd faced early on in my career and how this has impacted my family and friends, and a story I've kept private for nearly 20 years. Sadly, when I was a teenager, I lost my dad to suicide, and that left a mark on me that took me years to fully understand, and I guess even today, there's still some unanswered questions. Then a few years after my dad's death, I was in my first job in London at AOL. It was the start of the internet. It's all very exciting. But the pressure of that role, probably not dealing with my dad's death, I ended up at the end of 1999 being admitted and sectioned in hospital with stress and depression. I was off work for nearly a year, and I faced some really, really dark days during that time. Fortunately, in the end, I was able to get the right help and support. But it really was because of that stigma that made me not want to share that story of how mental illness had impacted me. And it was sadly a number of years later, in 2016, after losing a close friend to postnatal depression, I realised I had to speak out. My work now is centred on purpose and social impact, addressing not only mental health stigma, but also the wider social issues people find hard to talk about. I like to create these spaces and, so we can have a more empathetic and understanding world. I find the work deeply fulfilling. It can be challenging at times. But yeah, I think that hopefully gives some insight into some of the work that I'm currently doing at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. As you look at the overwhelming data around mental health, and it is overwhelming, isn't it? And at the same time, we're hearing about cuts to public services. Where are you seeing the sparks of hope in all this? Do you see a greater sense of collaboration? Do you see joined up thinking around this issue, or is it still quite siloed?
Yeah, there's so much progress that's happened since 2017. I think there's a lot more awareness of mental health, globally. I think certain areas are probably getting more support than others. And it is a real worry for a lot of people if they're supporting somebody that has a mental illness or also going through something similar yourself. But definitely through my work that I do, what gives me hope is actually there's a lot of support, there's a lot of help out there. And especially if you can access that support and help earlier, you can hopefully, especially some of the problems that I had when I was younger, they wouldn't have even manifested to be that kind of crisis. And so that's what really gives me the hope. And even with technology now, with AI coming in, the ability to signpost, to detect problems earlier and get people access to help is what gives me hope. And through the work that I've done, I know the support and help is there. And so I think it is that stigma that really stops people asking early for help. And then that's why we're seeing such a crisis, because people are getting very unwell and then presenting themselves to hospital or GP or even getting sectioned. And that point on collaboration, Heads Together was all about bringing these initial 8 mental health charities together. It's some of the biggest charities and some of the smallest. And I've got to be a collaborative approach to tackle some of these really big issues. That's the only way things are going to change. Yeah,
amazing. Our third question, Jon, is where is your place of reset or recharge?
Yeah, well, I think it kind of touches into my first question, which was really, it is Cape Town. It's South Africa that I go back to as a kind of a physical place. As I say, there was a real space for me to decompress. The other kind of place that really kind of popped into my head was bed. Yeah. And I've talked about I've ended up, doing marathons and running kind of quite long distances. But I've said that when I was ill with my mental health, like getting out of bed was literally felt like a marathon.
Yeah.
And I've definitely learnt that that place, that safe space, when sometimes it can be getting all a little bit too much, like just go to bed, the world keeps spinning, and if you need to lie down and stop for a moment or a day, or that's a good thing for you to do, to know when to recharge. So it doesn't sound very exciting, but I was pushed for bed being a good place to recharge.
That's a good answer.
And not having any shame of sometimes just saying, you know what, it's all getting a bit too much.
Yeah, here we go.
I need a break.
Here we go. Important. Across the 140 or so episodes, people have responded to this next question in multiple ways. But Jon, what wonder of the natural world excites you the most?
Yeah, what excites me most? Wow, it's, a big question. And the first thing that popped into my head was the moon. And the moon last night was just incredible. It was
incredible, yeah.
So bright. And I watched it throughout the evening, climbing higher and bigger into the sky. And just the awe and wonder of the moon, especially when it's a full moon and on a clear night. But it's also that thing we just take for granted that's just always there.
That's so good. It was the hunter's moon, wasn't it? They give a name for these different moons, and last night was the hunter's moon, and it just was stunning, wasn't it? I've just looked at it actually again as a reminder. It's only 238,000 miles away, which in the context of the solar system that we're in, that's just no distance at all. 384,000 kilometers. Brilliant. So, Jon, we have two more questions. Our fifth question takes the focus onto someone else. So what is your hopeful story that's not your own, about a person, business or non-profit who are doing amazing things for the world? So who would you love to give a shout out to today?
Yeah, I've met some incredible people over the years doing amazing things, and probably picking up a bit of a theme that I've got a bit of an issue with the month of January. And somebody who changed that perspective for me after finding January such a challenging month was a person called Hannah Beecham. And 10 years ago, Hannah set up an organisation called Red January, which stands for Rise Every Day. Before she set Red January up, she had been supporting her mum, who had some challenges with her mental health during the winter months, and saw the benefit of getting outside, outdoors, going for small walks, and decided to create this social movement to encourage people to do some form of movement during the month of January and setting yourself a challenge. Yeah, this was a number of years ago that I came across Red January. I was drawn by its red, bright colours and this kind of clear kind of message, and doing some form of, for me, going for a walk and running has been really helpful for my mental health. And so I love this idea of setting myself a challenge at the start of the year to get out and do some form of exercise. And over the years, that's kind of evolved as well. And I kind of now locally do that with groups. But I think what's amazing, what Hannah has been able to do with Red January, is also generate millions of pounds for charities as well. So she partners with different organisations, and hopefully I've got the charity right for this year, which is Mind Over Mountains, and encouraging people to get out in the outdoors. And just amazing individual who's raised thousands of millions of pounds for charity. But more importantly, I think for so many people, where January can be a challenging month, has given that hope to connect, to get out and enjoy this movement. Yeah, that's something
Amazing.
that everybody can take part in. So definitely worth giving Red January a Google and getting involved.
Great. So good. We raise a mug to Hannah Beecham. Hannah, you're amazing. Well done. Keep doing it. And Jon, have you got any plans for January this year, or next year, I should say?
Yeah, I've got an idea. Like where I live in London, we've got quite an over-the-top town hall, and they can light that up in different colours. So I'm going to set myself the challenge that on the 1st of January I can get the council to light it up red.
Great.
So I'm going to try and manifest that and try and put that out there. I'd like to properly kind of make sure people in this part of London know it's happening.
That's great. So good. Jon, this has been such a great orbit. But as we draw our time to a close and prepare to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, what insight, wisdom, or question would you like to leave with us?
I heard this relatively recently, which I really like, about thinking big but starting small. And I enjoy being a cheerleader. And I think there's lots of things that we can do to support other people that may be doing great things, but may not actually, when you look behind the curtain, they may not have the right kind of support in the work that they're doing. Just giving things a like, a retweet, a little comment on social media, it doesn't cost anything. And I think sometimes that ripple that we don't need to do big things to support people sometimes, just giving them a bit of social love and support.
Brilliant. And thanks for engaging with our 6 questions in such a great way. For anybody who may be listening to this, at a point in their life where they are seeking help, maybe for the first time, concerning their own mental well-being, what would be your advice to them in the terms of a place to be going, maybe online or in person?
Yeah, there's a couple of places, but I think if you only remember one thing from listening to our chat today, it's a website and app called hubofhope.co.uk, or you can just on iPhone just Google that within the App Store, Hub of Hope. And what this does is you can use your own location or type in somebody else's location, and it will signpost you to different support. And you can kind of, through the search, you can kind of filter it depending on the type of support you need. And so the Hub of Hope has become one of the largest databases of different free and paid support services. So I think it's always a challenge sometimes when we open up conversations. If we are concerned about somebody, we may be good at listening, but I know I also try to, I want to help more than listen. And the Hub of Hope is a really good place to find resources and help to signpost people to.
That's so good.
One other thing that I'll just get a brief mention in for is a charity that I'm a trustee for called Let's Talk About Loss. And this was set up by Beth, who lost her mum due to cancer, and she wanted to create support for young bereaved people, and she now has over 80 places around the UK offering bereavement support for young people as well. So it would be amiss of me not to mention Let's Talk About Loss as well.
Yeah, and we'll forward those links on your episode page on the Wonderspace website, so we'll forward links to that as well. So thanks again, Jon, for helping us to re-wonder today, and for sharing your hopeful stories, and for your honesty and vulnerability, and for your signposting. We really appreciate everything of what you're about, and you're such a force for good in the world, and it's so appreciated. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
I hope you enjoyed this inspiring orbit with Jon. The transcript, together with all the organisational links, can be found on Jon's episode page at ourwonder.space. Finally, I want to draw your attention to a new networking platform that we have launched to enable everyone to engage with our 5th question on Wonderspace. a networking platform called Someone Else that connects us through the way that we share hopeful stories about someone else. Go to someoneelse.space, create a simple profile, and upload your story. Thanks again to Jon and to you for listening.